Let's set the record straight on forbearance once and for all. There seems to be some confusion. Let's clear the smoke and talk facts. Let's get out of the matrix for just a few minutes. Been doing a lot of research, digging into the weeds. Want to clarify some things. So, millions of homeowners in need of mortgage relief as pandemic enters year 2 and they can't get help. Some 14.5 million single-family home loans are privately owned with no federal backing and occupy a gray area when it comes to government programs delaying foreclosure proceedings and granting payment forbearance. So privately held, remember that. So millions of homeowners have been excluded from federal protections providing pandemic-related mortgage payment relief. Now many who have suffered setbacks during the public health emergency find their homes are at risk of foreclosure. So, 14.5 million single-family mortgages, about 30% total outstanding that are privately owned, have no federal backing. While homeowners with mortgages backed by federally chartered Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or by federal government can qualify for up to 18 months of pandemic-related forbearance and are shielded by foreclosure moratorium, that extends through the end of June, among other protections. So there's no nationwide relief for loans that are not federally backed is the key point. So let me clarify. You have 2.6 to 3 million federally backed loans that are in forbearance the last 18 months. It's over 3 million. And you have 14.5 million single-family loans are privately held, and a percentage of those people are behind on their payments. That's key. So servicers say they're doing their part to help borrowers. Our number one goal is to keep people in their homes, just like 2008, says a spokesperson, head of the default services group for Wells Fargo. The bank has taken the same approach to mortgages that are not federally backed as to those that are, except when private investors place limits on the relief, the result, non-federally backed borrowers are sometimes offered only short-term payment suspensions and relatively unaffordable repayment plans. And in the worst cases, they get no relief and they lose their homes due to foreclosure mid-pandemic. So that has been happening. Their fate often depends on the identity of the loan holder. Many of these loans are held in bank portfolios where the bank has considerable discretion to offer the type of relief it seems fit, while others are owned by smaller investors or packaged into private label securities where the deal documents can govern what type of relief servicers can offer to borrowers. So that leaves borrowers exposed in a sticky situation as the pandemic punches holes in the nation's housing security. As of January, this is in January, serious mortgage delinquencies were at 5 times their pre-pandemic levels, according to mortgage data provider Black Knight. I love Black Knight. So there's no foreclosures. There's no one's in delinquency right now. Okay. Consumer advocates are calling on lawmakers to expand homeowners' rights to forbearance and other payment relief. Congress should require private loans to adopt a foreclosure moratorium, forbearance plans, and post-forbearance payment options similar to those available to the federally backed borrowers and give servicers who foul such provisions safe harbor from the investor lawsuits, just like on the rental moratorium side with the landlords. So many distressed homeowners with mortgages that are not federally backed have received pandemic-related forbearance, but in some cases it's brief, only 3 months. I've heard of 2 months, for example. Housing counselors and homeowners are telling people, about 5% of non-federally backed loans were in forbearance as of late February, according to Black Knight, consistent with the share of all mortgages that have been afforded such relief. For homeowners who want to extend their forbearance periods, some servicers are requiring new documentation every month, just like in 2008. And then they lose the documentation, which creates an enormous amount of uncertainty and extra burden that really isn't necessary. It's not necessary at all. So the real trouble often starts when forbearance ends. Some servicers ask borrowers to repay the amount in a lump sum or set up a monthly repayment plan. that a homeowner can't afford, while others often have similar friendlier options such as deferring the forbearance amount to the end of the loan term. Homeowners with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac and government-backed loans aren't required to make a lump sum payment when existing a COVID forbearance, and they often have to access to streamlined options that let them resume the prior payment schedules while deferring the skip payments to the end of the loan term. And that's key. Even Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it's going to be tacked onto your loan. So they're not going to say, just forget about it. Don't worry about it. So a sizable share of the homeowner has recently exited forbearance with past due payments and no loss mitigation plan in place. In some cases, that's because servicers are having trouble contacting the borrowers or because it takes time to process modifications. They're a little behind, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. And in the week ending March 14th, about 22% of non-federally backed borrowers and 20% of total borrowers who left forbearance were not current on their loans and had no repayment plan and loan modification in place, according to the association. That is not good. So some homeowners' relief options are limited because their mortgages are part of the private label securities market, which blew up during the last federal crisis, but had started to make a comeback pre-pandemic, and documents that govern the servicing of loans, these securities are sometimes very vague, leaving relief options open to a servicer's interpretation, which is always not good. While in other cases, they give service incentives. So they leave it all up to them, paying higher fees for servicing loans which are in distress, or tie the hands of the servicers that would otherwise often be more generous during the forbearance options. So for loans in the private label securities, it's not always clear who has the authority to decide on the terms and relief offered to the borrowers. It could be an investor trustee, a bond administrator, or another third party. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau wants to closely track post-forbearance repayment options that are offered borrowers whose mortgages are not federally backed. The Federal Housing Finance Agency, which oversees Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, has said that it's moving to preserve protections for borrowers whose loans are sold by the two mortgage giants. So this is a mess, and it has writings of 2008 again. So there's a lot of private mortgages out there, is the bottom line of this video, that are not federally backed and are not protected, and you have investor groups who run these, who have a lot more discretion, and they have bills too, and they're just they may be relying on these monies that they've invested from these borrowers to make other payments on other buildings or what have you. Just like on the landlord side of the rental moratorium, landlords like me not getting our money, and we have that problem going on. So there's two sides to the story, and California, for example, is a very tenant-friendly state, but this is just kicking the can down the road. So in sum, you have 3 million plus homes in forbearance that if they went into foreclosure tomorrow, it'd be worse than the 2008 crisis where 860,000 homes were foreclosed on. So now you add the private element to that, and that's the key of this video. There's a private side to this too. We've been kicking the can down the road now till end of June on the federal side, but we got a private problem, and I'm watching national foreclosures nationally, and there's a massive uptick of people in default. It's not a good sign right now, so I'm hoping, we do need help with regulators in this situation, but it's not a good situation, and you can't sugarcoat it on the surface. When you delve into the weeds, it's very concerning. I just wanted to share that with you. Take care. Be creative.